This explanation is long in the making. And frankly, it's a bad job by me. If I really wanted to capitalize and get as many views as possible, I'd have put this thing out a month ago when it was all hot in the streets. But the New England Patriots had an opportunity to establish a dynasty, an unstoppable dynasty, the likes of which they had with Brady and Belichick. And they actively chose not to. The hell? How? I'll explain. Once upon a time, Robert Kraft, aged though he is, decided he needed to be the one to make a bold decision and move on from traditional, dynasty era Patriots coaching. He needed something new, but reminiscent of old. And he knew just who to call. He was going to get a former Patriots linebacker, a fan favorite, a great, not quite a Hall of Famer, but a Patriots Hall of Famer, to come lead his team. Because he was just a leader of men who inspired the guys. And, they'd bring in some old retread offensive coordinator and they'd figure out the defense as they went. But that leadership and that essence of the OG dynasty, that would be enough to lead Drake May and this rebuilt team to new heights. Does that sound confusing? Are we talking about this year or last year, motherfucker? Because that's exactly what they did with Gerard Mayo, and it's exactly what they're doing with Mike Vrabel. We're going to move on from Belichick, but this is young Belichick. It's Mayo. He was a linebacker here. He knows the culture. It'll be good. Oh, fuck, it was the worst thing we've actually ever seen. This is a disaster. How do we fix this? Well, the problem isn't that we were wrong. The problem isn't that Gerard Mayo's an idiot. The problem isn't that we hired a defensive head coach and then got a bad offensive coordinator to pair with him, right? Right? No, the problem has to be, we were right. So actually the problem is Gerard Mayo wasn't experienced enough. And if he had just been a coach for a few more years, he probably would have been really, really good because we're smart. We made the right decision, right? So let's just get the version of Gerard Mayo with more experience as a head coach, because that was the problem, was the experience. So we'll go get Mike Vrabel, also a linebacker, also knows the culture, also kind of sort of from the Belichick tree that never seems to bear fruit that's edible, but we're going to keep trying to eat it anyway. We don't really have an offensive coordinator to pair with him. Let's go get Josh McDaniels for the third time. Sure, he's never had a top 10 offense without Tom Brady, and his offenses were actually fucking awful in St. Louis with Sam Bradford and Denver with Kyle Orton and then later Tim Tebow, his guy who he drafted in the first round, by the way. And then his offense was not very good with Cam Newton and not very efficient with Mac Jones, despite having the best field position in NFL history and the best turnover luck in NFL history. And then he went to the Raiders and their offense wasn't really any good. No, he's going to be great. I mean, look, they won all those Super Bowls. Tom Brady couldn't have had anything to do with that, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Josh McDaniels knows. He didn't know all those times before, but now he does. Or we just knew him, and the Patriots seem obsessed with hiring people they know and like from times of old when things worked, and they have failed completely to recognize that things worked because you had the greatest player ever at the most important position, not because you did anything else well. That was it. That was it. And so here the Patriots are. And it'd be one thing if they just made bad decisions like this. Like, Mike Vrabel's the best we can do. But the opportunity cost is what is damning. Because the best coaching prospect since Kyle Shanahan threw himself at the Patriots. Ben Johnson wanted this job first and foremost. Let me tell you how I know. First of all, Ben Johnson went to UNC, North Carolina. He was a quarterback there, and he loves UNC. Talks about it all the time in interviews. At the Senior Bowl a couple years ago, he was raving about how great Sam Howell was and how much he loved him and how it was important to him that he went to UNC, so he knows he's a smart guy. And then with Sam Howell at the same Senior Bowl, they were talking about how Drake May might even be better than Sam Howell. And then Drake May was. Like, Drake May was really fucking good. Fast forward to last offseason. Ben Johnson's looking for a head coaching job. He's interviewing around. Everybody seems to know that the Bears are going to take Caleb Williams at 1. Ben Johnson's like, oh my God, I get Drake May and I get to go to Washington, run my own franchise. Washington said they wanted to draft Jaden Daniels instead of Drake May. And so rather than take the job that had all been ironed out, Ben Johnson spurned them at the door. Washington was on a plane. The brass, Adam Peters, the owner, Josh Harris, they were on a plane to Detroit. And Ben Johnson sent them a text and was like, yo, guys, I'm out. You basketball guys have strong opinions and don't really know how football works. Seems to be a difference in opinion on personnel and how to build a team. Ben Johnson wanted Drake May. That's not to say Jaden Daniels isn't great, wasn't the right pick. Who knows? I don't know. All I know is Ben Johnson wanted Drake May in Washington and turned the job down rather than work with Jaden Daniels instead. So now Ben Johnson has the opportunity to work with Drake May, with the Patriots, who have a ton of cap space. They don't really have a GM, so you get to craft the organization from scratch. If you believe, like I believe, and like Ben Johnson believes, that Drake May is a generational, once-in-a-lifetime quarterback talent, then that's a great opportunity. And that's how Ben Johnson seemed to handle it. He really wanted that job. The Patriots didn't want to take a chance on another guy that lacked experience. So instead, they got a guy who's proven to us he's not a great coach. And I know what you guys are thinking. Mike Vrabel's a great coach. He went to the playoffs all those times with the Titans. Those Titans rosters were stacked. We're talking about prime Harold Landry, one of the best sack artists in the league for a few years. Jeffrey Simmons, dominant defensive tackle. We're talking about a revolving door of Jadeveon Clowney's, Bud Dupree's, solid second rushers. Not great, but solid. And you got guys like Cunningham and Brown at linebacker, and they're fine. But Kevin Byard's an all-pro, right? You ran through corners like Malcolm Butler and Christian Fulton, and like you got good years out of these guys. Jason McCourty. It was a really good defensive roster. And their defense was solid, good even. But on offense, Taylor Lewan, Michael Roos, Roger Staffel, like you had great offensive linemen. And then on the outside was A.J. Brown. Corey Davis, pretty good wide receiver too. But guys, you had prime Derrick Henry. You had Ryan Tannehill, who was a really good quarterback. Ryan Tannehill won 10 games with Adam fucking Gase. This is a good quarterback. And calling plays for him was none other than Matt LaFleur. You know, like Coach of the Year candidate Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur. That is a stacked roster and coaching staff underneath Mike Vrabel. They disappointed. You know why they disappointed? Because when they go to the playoffs, Mike Vrabel would keep running the ball even when it didn't work. Even when the passing game was cooking and the running game was being stuffed and the box was stacked, Vrabel wanted them to run the ball. And I know he doesn't call plays on offense, but head coaches do set the philosophy. They do say, hey, our objective in this game is to run. Our objective in this game is to control clock. Keep the score low. Things of this nature. They make the fourth down decisions. Mike Vrabel, notorious for punting from field goal range. In the AFC Championship against the Ravens, Lamar Jackson played terrible. The Titans stifled the Ravens completely. But the Titans handed the ball to Derrick Henry like 30 times despite him averaging 2.3 yards a carry or something like that. And they punted 3 times from the Ravens' side of the field on 4th and short. And that sounds crazy, and it sounds like I'm lying. It sounds like something must have been wrong or we didn't know. But when asked about such things on Pardon My Take last summer, Mike Vrabel said his strategy for winning big games is reserve the right to punt. Because he thinks that if you keep the game low scoring, even if you don't take chances, and you just punt and play the field position game, eventually at the end of the game, you'll have a chance to win. But that only works if your defense is elite and you get lucky. It doesn't really work. Especially in this new era where Dan Campbell and Dan Quinn are going for it literally every fourth down, right? So the other team is going to be stealing possessions and you're going to be giving possessions away. Every one of those cowardly punts by Mike Vrabel is just as bad as a deep interception by your quarterback. It's a bad idea. I don't think that Mike Vrabel's a very good coach. I think he's an average one. He keeps, because of the way he coaches, the games will always be low scoring and you'll always get variance and like outcomes that are strange, like crazy upsets. But if you increase variance enough, you get to 50-50. And that's why Mike Vrabel's head coaching record is almost identical to Jeff Fisher's coaching record in Tennessee. They're both slightly above 500 coaches. And as we saw with Jeff Fisher when he left Tennessee and lost his stacked roster by going to St. Louis, this high variance bullshit gets you 7-9. Or in the Patriots' case, 8-9. Maybe 9-8. But you're not getting 13-4. You're not getting a Super Bowl. You're not going far unless you have a stacked ass roster. But if you have a stacked ass roster, nothing matters. It's really hard to get 22 really, really good players. Especially when you have to pay a quarterback, and they're going to have to pay Drake May, although I pray he walks away from them. Patriots really fumbled the bag. Because Ben Johnson, at the very least, you know for a fact, you pair Ben Johnson with Drake May, your offense is going to be top 5 in the league. Maybe the best. You pair Mike Vrabel with Drake May, you know that you're probably not going to throw the ball a lot. Your offense is probably going to be middle of the pack because Mike Vrabel is going to mitigate Drake May's greatness by refusing to use him. Right? You could have, you could have the longest, sharpest sword. And if you never unsheath it, you might as well not have a sword. That's what the Patriots are right now. They got the best weapon in the NFL in Drake May, in my opinion, and they're not going to use it. And he's not going to develop because he's not going to get the reps. And he's never going to become the amazing quarterback he should. And they're never going to reach the heights that Drake May deserves to because they hired the safe, cowardly pick, which is the safe, cowardly coach, Mike Vrabel. It's franchise incompetence begetting franchise incompetence. And if you're going to say that, Mike Vrabel will get the culture right, who gives a fuck? 5 players on that roster deserve to be back next year or any year thereafter. So who cares if the culture is right with them? You know what makes for a really good culture? Like culture. What is culture? Culture is working hard, caring about your job, doing your job well. You know who cares about their job, does their job well, stays on task, doesn't need a lot of motivation? Good players. And that's ignoring the fact that Ben Johnson comes from the Dan Campbell tree. Ben Johnson's most recent boss was the best motivator, leader, and culture builder in the NFL, according to all the people who believe in that nebulous voodoo bullshit. Personally, as an athlete of 20 years, as a multiple-time, state champion, I never really cared what my coach said in the locker room other than whether or not I was playing and how we were going to play. I didn't need him, to tell me to try hard or to inspire me to win a game. And I don't think that these 20-something-year-old millionaires who have gotten to the point they have in their life because of their love of and talent for football, I don't think they need convincing to try. It's like, hey, guys, I know that if you play really well, you'll make millions of dollars and get all the prettiest girlfriends and be all over the internet and be on TV and rappers will talk about you and you could win games and achieve personal glory and satisfy all of your childhood dreams. But have you ever thought that like biting in the kneecaps? No, It's dumb. It's fucking dumb. And if you thought about it for a second, you wouldn't believe it either. Sure, players are going to say, like, coach really keeps us together and inspires us. But, like, if he didn't, they would inspire each other. Right? How much did Mike Vrabel motivate Isaiah Wilson to stay out of prison and play football? He didn't. Isaiah Wilson was a first-round pick that Mike Vrabel could not get a year of playing football out of. He couldn't wrangle his mind. Great leadership. Evidently, it's not moving the needle. And Mike Vrabel seems like a really cool guy and a good leader and like somebody I'd like to hang out with. I really do think that. But that doesn't matter. Isaiah Wilson, the leadership didn't move him. Corey Davis retired. Apparently, the leadership didn't move him. A.J. Brown demanded more money and left. Apparently, the leadership wasn't worth the cash. What are we doing here? We're pretending that this thing that we can't see or find proof of exists because what? Personally, I think it's because most people that talk about this leadership bullshit don't actually understand the game of football. So they don't see that most of the game is chess. It's using combinations of routes to confuse and spread out defenders to create openings so that you can throw the ball to the opening and let the athlete make a play in space. They don't see that on defense, it's about showing somebody one thing so they think they've got an easy answer and then taking the easy answer away. So they just say, that team kept on winning. They must have had like a really good vibe in the locker room, you know? Like, how could they have won if the vibes weren't super good? That's not how things work. I've never been to a law firm where they're like, yeah, we don't do a lot of research. We don't write too good. But we have a great time. We have some beers in between cases. It works. And the judge is like, those are cool guys. They're going to win. That's not how life works. Vibes are nice. But the actual work is what matters. And Mike Vrabel failed at the actual work, and he hired guys who are mediocre at the actual work. And they could have had Ben Johnson, who's really fucking good at the work and might even be really good at all the mystical bullshit that other people believe in too. Grand, unbelievable failure. Probably the worst coaching hire of the offseason. You've committed yourself to an average coach, a slightly below average, maybe average offense. Let's hope it's an average defense. And because it's Robert Kraft's second attempt at replacing Bill Belichick, even if this year goes to hell, they're going to keep trying to make it work because they don't want to be embarrassed. It's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. And by the way, there's no Ben Johnson on the horizon either to hire in a few years when Mike Vrabel proves to be average. And the worst part is for Patriots fans, Drake May is good enough that they're still going to win once they fully rebuild. This year, they're going to win like 7 games because their schedule is super easy and Drake May is really good. And they'll just win 7 or 8 games. Next year, they'll be like, we got so much better. We went from, actually, let me put on a Boston accent. We got so much better. Nah, that's bad. Park the car in Harvard Yard. We got so much better this year. We had like the worst team in the league, and then Drake May came and we got better, and then Mike Vrabel came and he made us even better. And now this year we're going to win everything. We're going to beat the Jets, and we're going to beat Patrick Mahomes. We're going to secure Tom Brady's legacy. It's going to be great. But then that third year, they're going to win like 8 games again. And they'll be like, oh, it was a roadblock, but we're going to get there. We got this. And then they're going to win like 7 games, and they're going to be like, this might be a problem. And even if they win 10 games, they're going to be like, see, I told you, we made the playoffs. We did it. We're great. Patriot Dynasty's back on. Dave Portnoy is going to make a bunch of really annoying videos. And then in the playoffs, Mike Vrabel is going to punt from like the 30-yard line instead of kicking a game-tying field goal. Or some stupid shit like that. And you're going to be 5 years down the line. Drake May is going to be approaching 30. You're going to have to pay him big. And you're going to be saying, and this is best case scenario, remember, you're going to be saying, fuck, I wish we had that guy Ben Johnson who just won the Super Bowl in Chicago. Damn. Except you're going to say it in a Boston accent, and I can't do that anymore because I've been talking for like an hour. You fucked up. Mountaintop was here, and you decided to camp right over here instead. Sucks, Patriots, but that's all I got. That's why I'm low on the Patriots. Part of why I'm low on Drake May right now. On the football field, the guy's a genius. He's wonderful. He's a great, great quarterback, but he didn't have the balls to demand that Gerard Mayo be removed, and he didn't have the balls to advocate for Ben Johnson. And if he didn't want Ben Johnson, he was too dumb to know what's good for him, which tells me that his career is going to go a lot like Baker Mayfield's. Bad coaches will sink great talent. But that's for another video and for another time. And who knows? Maybe I can talk to Drake and his camp and help set him straight. But until then, guess I got to just keep grinding film. One more coach to talk about, and I left him for last because it's a little bit of an outlier. But if you just came for Vrabel versus Johnson talk, all right, Asta.